Hey guys, it is me, the Emerald Sword, and welcome back to another video where today we're going to do something a little bit different today, right? So normally you would know me for my horrorverse stuff or my Lego reviews or back in the day my gaming videos, but we're not going to do that today. Today we're going to be reviewing a favorite of mine, Carrie by Stephen King. Yes, Stephen King's first book. So basically, for those of you who don't know me in real life, I have been a Stephen King fan since I read Carrie back in 2021, right? And I thought it was pretty good. I'd only seen the TV movie until that point, and I've heard from other people that it was the most accurate Stephen King, or I guess not the most accurate Stephen King movie, but the most accurate Carrie movie. There you go. And I just decided to watch it, and I thought it was pretty good. And so I eventually decided to read this, Carrie. And I have to say that the TV movie was really accurate to the book. But we're not going to talk about the movies today. We're going to talk about the book. So, basically, let's get right into this and start with Part 1, Bloodsport. So after a brief introduction with a news clipping detailing the falling rocks on top of the White House, there you go, White House, we quickly go to the shower room scene, which Brian De Palma, who I hate, by the way, for reasons we'll get to in a moment, has made infamous. So you're all aware that Carrie begins in the locker room, right? And then the girls are like showering and putting their clothes back on, normal stuff in a shower room. But the book does it in a way that isn't creepy, okay? And yes, they are naked. I will say that they are naked in the book. But Stephen King uses the locker room scene as a form of isolation than the other girls for Carrie. Yeah, so basically, like, Carrie's really the only one that we get to see as naked. Yes, the other girls are too, but Carrie's the only one we focus on. And she is described as, like, an ugly girl, basically. Like, she has pimples all over her face and other places. She's slightly overweight. Her hair is very unkempt. And this is contrasted with the other girls that have, like, the perfect bodies. They have the perfect lives. Like, everything about them is perfect, right? Yeah, we're talking about underage women, but still, they're supposed to be perfect, and Carrie is not. And so Stephen King uses the nudity in this scene as a form of isolation because when the other girls are naked, they look perfect, and then when Carrie's naked, she's like this ugly swan that is just like so hard to look at. It is absolutely unbearable, right? And so Brian De Palma, well, he just put naked women in there. That's it. That's all he did. But anyway, aside from the movies, after the infamous locker room scene where the inciting incident happens, the blood, Carrie walks home after being excused from school, and then a news clipping appears of the neighbor across the street who was sunbathing when Carrie saw her, right? And then so that's when we meet Margaret White for the first time. That's when we know that she tried to murder her own daughter in cold blood. Yes, this book is one of those books. Anyway, and then we get like some backstory about her father and stuff, which is pretty interesting because the movies kind of explain how her father left Margaret, but we never explain like so much about her father like the book does. So I thought that was pretty good. A little bit unnecessary, but I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, so and then we catch back up with Sue Snell, who was part of the shower incident, and then she feels just really bad about treating Carrie like that. So then she's planning something, and we'll get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But yeah, and then she like feels really bad, and then Tommy, super nice guy by the way, Tommy, yeah, he is like trying to console her, like saying all the other ones were doing it, so why wouldn't you join in? Like stuff like that. He's just trying to be supportive. But then Sue's like, no, I really feel bad about that. So then we'll come back to that later. And then we also meet the main villain, or I guess one of the main villains of the story, Christine Horginson, also goes by Chris Horginson. And she is just one of the worst human beings ever to exist. Like, let me tell you this. She is one of the worst human beings to ever exist. I mean, oh my gosh, come on. And then what she does later in the book, we'll get to that too. But, oh, wow, she is painful to read. Her dad's a lawyer, so she's entitled, you know. She gets all the special treatment. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, so basically just some other shenanigans happen. We find out that the prom is coming up, or I guess as the book says it, the spring ball. So we find out that the spring ball is coming. And then this is where stuff starts getting interesting, because then we finally find out that Sue had asked Tommy to take Carrie to the prom. And then at first he's like, "No, you're my girlfriend. I love you, Sue. I want to take you." And then Sue's like, "No, but I insist." So then I was like, "All right, I'll go with Carrie." So yeah, that is a really fun character moment, and I'm so sad that not all of the movies did that justice. Like, that is a great scene, and unfortunately not all the movies did it justice, and that is very unfortunate because it is a great scene. Anyway, so then the rest of the book goes on, like planning prom, you know, like getting the pig's blood, which happens kind of weirdly. They just bash the pig in and then slit its throat, and then there's the blood, right? And they do it to two pigs, actually. They do it to two pigs. But yeah, the book is actually really interesting if you think about it. It's my favorite Stephen King book, by the way. I will say that. It's my favorite Stephen King book. Carrie's my favorite Stephen King character. And it's just like, I think it's really great. But yeah. Now that we have all the prom planning out of the way, now that we have all that, it's time for part 2, prom night. So basically, I didn't cover it in the last section, but Carrie kind of told Margaret that she accepted Tommy's prom proposal, I guess, and that she will be going with him. And then, of course, Margaret, being the very religious mother, like the overly religious mother, she obviously wasn't a fan of that. So then Carrie's like, "Well, I'm going anyway," and then just storms out of there, right? And so we catch up with her putting on her dress, and it looks pretty good. And Margaret is against the whole red thing because red is like the color of Satan or whatever. You know, like basic religious propaganda that, as a religious man myself, is just not true. Not at all. Yeah, so anyway, the dress is red, which is another thing that the movies don't cover. The dress is red, and that symbolizes her finally breaking away from her mother's shadow and wanting to become her own person. And I think that is a really powerful moment. And the movies say that it's red too, but it's clearly pink. Why do the movies say that the dress is red if it's pink? I don't know. Anyway, Carrie looks actually pretty good in the dress. Tommy thinks it. The rest of the school thinks it. And then that is that, I guess. She looks pretty good in the dress. But meanwhile, because, you know, Chris is the ringleader of all this, she wasn't allowed to go to prom, so she had her boyfriend Billy, like, kill some pigs and stuff and get the blood. So, I can't tell if it's the day before or the day of. I think it's the day before. But he puts the blood on top of the stage. We see that happen. And so that sets the stage for the most famous instance in Carrie, and we'll get to that in a second. So anyway, we cut back to Tommy and Carrie. They arrive at the prom, and the whole thing is fantastic. Like, it looks pretty great, right? Lights, music, just all of it, everything. And then everyone is like, "Whoa, Carrie's cool now." So then they try to include her and stuff. So then Tommy asks her to dance, and she doesn't know how to, I guess. So then we never really come back to that. And so now it's time to, you know, reveal the prom king and queen. So what they do is they have like ballots, right? And then there's like half and half on each side. And they can't quite tell who the winner is, so then they have like, I think it's a run-on ballot, I think it's called. So then people like write down their answers and then put it on the pile. And so then they count it again 3 times to be exact to make sure it's right. And then surprise, surprise, Tommy and Carrie win prom king and queen. Hooray! But yeah, aside from that, then this is where stuff really starts to get interesting, right? So they go up on stage, and then they sit down in chairs, like I'm sitting in right now. I'm sitting in a chair. They sit down on the thrones. Yeah, 2 thrones for prom king and prom queen. And then, oh, here it comes. The blood comes down. And, like, it is so weird in the book because when the blood first comes down, we see it from Billy and Chris's perspective. We hear someone screaming and that's it. And then we cut to a survivor telling the story about how there was just this giant red glob coming down on top of Carrie, and they say she looked like she had been dipped in a bucket of red paint. And that's pretty interesting. So that lets you know that she is covered in this stuff. Like, that is disgusting. It smells like iron. It smells like blood. It's disgusting. And so Carrie is, like, horrified, right? But then the bucket falls on Tommy's head, and then he just dies. Yeah, I know. Pretty funny, right? Pretty funny. But yeah, so the bucket falls on his head. He dies. And then Carrie's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So then she gets up out of her chair, runs over, like runs off the stage and stuff. And so Mrs. Desjardins, the gym teacher that's been helping her this entire time, she like runs over, tries to clean her up, and then Carrie's like, no. And then just telekinesis her out of the way and into the wall and stuff. So then Carrie's trying to run outside, but then someone trips her, and then she falls and makes an oof sound, which I thought was pretty funny. And anyway, after that, she just like gets up, runs outside, and then just goes back into the grass. And then she's like, hold on, I have powers. Let's do this. So then she goes back inside, sort of. So anyway, this is where the differences from the movie really start to happen, because as we all know in the movies, that she's on stage as this happens. She does the entire thing on stage. But in the book, she goes back into the school just outside of the gym, locks all the doors to the gym while she's on the other side safe, and then activates the sprinklers, which come down, land on the wires, and then like electricity and fire starts happening. And then yeah, that's the prom incident in the book. So after that, Carrie decides to just wreak havoc on the town. So then we hear a bunch of news clippings and interviews about what really happened on that night. Like, stuff is happening, like, stuff is exploding, it's on fire, fire hydrants are just, like, opening themselves. It's really weird, But it is quite the massive destruction. So anyway, we later find out that Carrie is going back home to face her mother, right? Now, her mother had been sharpening a knife on a whetstone, which is, like, used to sharpen knives and stuff. And then you just know that she is about to do something when Carrie gets home. Like just holding a knife ready to stab her. So anyway, Carrie gets home, and then Margaret reveals, when I married your father, we had an agreement that we weren't going to do it after we were married, but one day he just kind of came on to me, so yeah, that's kind of how you were created. So anyway, then she tries to stab Carrie and stabs her right in the shoulder. This is the left shoulder. She stabbed to the hilt, which is very painful, by the way. So then Carrie's like, hey, you know what I feel? I feel your heart slowly stopping. And then so she kills Margaret by stopping her heart, which is very scary, by the way. This is horrifying what she does in the book. That is very scary. And yeah. So then she's like, well, dang it. I'm kind of weakening now, so I'm just going to go rest. So then we kind of do a bunch of stuff with Sue and like some interviews after that. So then we're gonna cut back to Carrie. She like managed to crawl all the way over to the roadhouse, which is like 3 miles or something. 3 miles away from her house, which is quite the crawl, by the way. That would take a while. So then we cut back to Chris and Billy. Now they're in the bedroom doing something, So then Jackie Talbot is like, guys, Carrie did something. You put the blood on her, and now she's after us. She is, like, really going crazy. And then, like, oh, dang, we gotta get out of town. So then this is where, well, I mean, we already saw Billy's abusive side, but Billy is really abusive here. Like he tells Chris that he would take her if she wanted to, like, away from Chamberlain. But he really wouldn't, guys. He really would not. He just does not like her anymore. Yeah. So anyway, they like go downstairs, get in their car, and then as they get in their car, boom! Carrie's right there, like 70 feet in front of them. 70 feet or like 70 something, maybe 70 meters, maybe 70 kilometers. I don't know. But anyway, she's like in front of them. So then Billy just like puts the pedal to the metal and just tries to run her down. And so Carrie's just like, boom, launches that thing into the wall, and then the car explodes and Chris and Billy die. And now this is the worst part of the book. I love the book, but this is just the one part I cannot get behind. Carrie falls over and is she's quickly weakening and deteriorating rapidly. So Sue apparently has like a psychic connection with her or something. It doesn't really get into what she has. I think she has the shine. But anyway, she senses that she knows where Carrie is. So she finds her in the parking lot, sad, alone, knife still on her shoulder, covered in blood, and dying. So then they have a little heart-to-heart in their mind. It's like, Sue was like, hey, just so you know, I wasn't in on the prank. That was uncalled for. And then Carrie's like, okay, so you're good now. And then she just dies. Carrie dies, and because she's my favorite Stephen King character, I hate that. I hate that Carrie has to die. Anyway, besides that, so then Sue also has a little blood incident, I guess. I don't know what that was. But anyway, now it's time for part 3, Wreckage. And the first page of this section is Carrie's death certificate. As if it couldn't get any worse by having Carrie die, and I have to read that. They have her death certificate on the first page. Ugh. Yeah, that is painful to read for me. Anyway, this one just really isn't like full of story because that ended when Carrie died. So it's basically just like a bunch of news clippings and interviews and excerpts from resignation letters. So like Miss Desjardins, she retires from teaching. Principal Grail, he retires from being a principal. And like all these people are leaving Chamberlain because Chamberlain is like dust now. The school's gone. The shopping district is gone. And then like Carrie's house is gone too. It's like the town is just a ghost town now. So like everybody's getting out of there. Nobody's like staying anymore. And then like the only people that live there anymore are like ghosts and stuff. And it is really sad. Like, I'm fine with all that sad stuff, but keep Carrie alive. Like, that would just make it that ever much better. But then, on the final page of the book, we get a letter from 1988. For reference, the actual Carrie stuff takes place in 1979, and then this letter is from 1988, so we jump like 9 years in the future. And then we hear that there was another blonde girl born with telekinesis. Like, she has telekinetic powers. So, could this be another Carrie? I don't know. Will Stephen King ever make a follow-up to that? I don't think so, considering this book was made in 1974. Anyway, but yeah, so that's a summary of the book. So let's get into the themes here. So, as I said, the nudity in the opening scene represents Carrie's isolation from the other perfect girls, and she is not perfect. And then red, of course, we know is the color of Satan. So her dress being red when she puts on the prom dress, that is finally her breaking away from her mother and her mother's tyranny rule, I guess, tyrannic rule, I guess. But yeah, overall the book is really good. I know that Stephen King wasn't too proud of it, and then he did say that he liked the Brian De Palma movie, which we'll get into, don't worry. But the book was really well made. the book has so much character and so much life, even though this is just like teenagers doing stuff. It's just teenagers preparing for prom, which is all it is. It was a little short, though. I think 7.5 hours was a little short for a book of that magnitude and a book that famous. There's certainly a lot of things in the book that I wish were expanded upon. It's like the Tommy thing, it cuts to his reaction instead of Sue telling him to take Carrie to the prom. I wish we would have gotten that full conversation instead of just that last part like we did. But overall, the book is really good. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's my favorite Stephen King book. As I said, I really enjoyed it. This is my second time reading it, so I got like a refresher, I guess. But any review wouldn't be complete without mentioning the movie adaptations. Now, I kind of alluded to this before, but I do not like Brian De Palma's adaptation of Carrie. I hate it. I think it is the worst movie ever to exist. Because first of all, the nudity in the locker room scene does not mean isolation this time. It means naked women. Brian De Palma changed the nudity representing isolation to just naked women. Yeah, and I just don't like Brian De Palma. He is not a nice guy. Just like, he forced women to do that against their will, forced them into tears. Anyway, I'm not going to get into what Brian De Palma did, but I noticed that the movie just also either changes scenes so drastically from the book that they're not recognizable, or they just don't happen at all. It's like the scene where Sue asks Tommy to take Carrie to the prom. It goes like this. Tommy, I want you to take Carrie to the prom. Next scene. It's like, it's so sudden. We never get the other part of that conversation. You know, the best part of it that proves Tommy's an actual character in the book. Yeah, and then when we cut back to him in the movie, he's just like, fine, I'll do it. But we never got any indication that he said no, by the way. So that's another thing I hate about it. And then also there is a scene where the guys go like tuck shopping, which isn't in itself a bad scene, but there's a scene towards the end where they literally speed up the argument, and it's like it's like a cartoon. It's like, come on. This is a hardcore R-rated movie in the 70s, and you have a scene that looks like a cartoon. I mean, come on. And then one of the biggest disrespects is that while Carrie's at prom, Margaret White is like pacing around her kitchen, right? And you just know that she's going to do something to Carrie when Carrie gets home. But so in the book, as I said, she sharpens her knife on a whetstone to prepare to stab Carrie in the shoulder with it. But in the movie, she cuts a carrot as the camera does this. Yeah, and I just thought that was really stupid, and that just ruined the whole film for me. So this is when I really started hating it. So I was like, okay, maybe the prom scene will make it better for me. That was the most underwhelming thing in the entire movie. What happens is the blood comes down, and then she sprays a couple people with a fire hose, and then a fire starts, and then they're all out of there. Like, at least in the book, it was more like a Rube Goldberg thing, like the overly intricately designed machines to do a simple task. It's like it seemed more thematic and cinematic in the book, and then the movie was just like, nah, fire hose and fire. That's good. That's it. That's good. But also, the movie made the weird decision of having like one or two people laugh at Carrie, and then her kaleidoscope eyes, I guess, like make it seem like everyone laughed at her when they really didn't. In the book, it says one person laughed, and then two people laughed, and then three, and then a dozen. I know this is 10, but this is a dozen, and then everyone. See how it slowly builds into everyone laughing at her? The movie was just like, yeah, so most of these people who got killed just like didn't deserve it at all. And so that just like, that just really annoyed me. And then Carrie dying, of course, happens in the movie as well. But I am okay with this one because Carrie dying in that movie is like just more thematic in that one. It's like she realizes that she's the monster, so she decides to take herself down with the house because the only monster was herself. And also her dying means that I don't have to watch that stupid movie anymore and I hate it. But anyway, aside from that, now we get on to the Rage Carrie 2. It is an unnecessary sequel, and I thought I wasn't going to like it very much, but I was actually really impressed with how good it was. Like, I thought it was pretty good. But anyway, this is a Carrie conversation, not the Rage Carrie 2. So the TV movie. Oh my gosh, the TV movie is so great, you guys. Oh my gosh. If you've never heard of it, go look it up. Go watch it. It is incredible. And yeah, not only is it more accurate to the book, which I love, by the way, since I love the books, I love it when an adaptation of the book is accurate to the book. But also, they keep Carrie alive. This is so good. They keep Carrie alive. Yeah, so that was pretty great. The characters feel like themselves. Another thing about the Brian De Palma movie is that Carrie's just this girl that exists and happens to get bullied sometimes. And she just does not act like Carrie from the book. Because Carrie from the book is like this angry, spiteful girl who has been bullied for years. And her rage has just been building up until it finally explodes on prom night, right? And so Carrie in the TV movie perfectly resembles that. There is a scene in the book where she's like, oh, sorry, TV movie, but there's a scene in the TV movie where she's like, see, she's just kind of like shaking, getting angrier, just like almost on the verge of exploding, but she doesn't. That is good because it shows how well of the book that Brian Fuller and David Carson paid attention to the book, because that is a great character moment. That scene wasn't in the book, but that scene was so good. Yeah, but anyway, aside from the TV movie, we get to the 2013 remake, which I thought was pretty good. A lot of people hate it because it's kind of a remake of the Brian De Palma movie. And as we all know, the Brian De Palma movie is the best thing ever to exist. And oh my gosh, if you say something against it, you are stupid and wrong, and I hate you. But anyway, I thought it was so good. Like, I was impressed with how good it was. It feels more like the book than the dumpster fire of a movie that is the Brian De Palma film. And it takes elements from everything I love about Carrie. Like, it takes some elements from the book. It takes some elements from the movies. And it smashes them together. And I thought it was just a really great outcome of the thing. I know that not a lot of people like it. I'm aware. But I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I just thought it was like a pretty good adaptation of Carrie. But anyway, that is where we are going to leave our conversation. Book, amazing. Original movie, not so much. And the other movie's pretty solid. But yeah, anyway, I will leave the conversation to you guys now. Do you like Carrie? Do you not like Carrie? Do you think the movies are better? Do you think another book is better than Carrie? Like, let me know in the comments if you want to, for all of you 20 people out there who are going to watch this video. But yeah, that is all the time I have for you guys today, and I will see you guys next time.